Hi, we're here to talk about Lost Planet 3, and you're watching Connected Digital World.
In August, Capcom will be releasing Lost Planet 3, the latest in the Lost Planet game series. We recently got to play some of the game and sit down with Andrew Szymanski, who's the producer and also the project lead. We've got some gameplay footage thrown in as well, so enjoy the interview. So would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Sure. My name is Andrew Szymanski, and I'm the producer and project lead at Capcom for Lost Planet 3.
So let's talk a little bit about Lost Planet 3.
Sure.
This game is set before the previous two games.
Yes.
So would you like to give us a little bit of background to the game?
Sure. Well, it's the story of Jim Payton, who is basically sort of a contractor slash everyman sort of guy who's come to the planet of EDN3 where the game takes place from Earth, and he's left his wife and young son, and basically it's sort of a future gold rush, if you will. They found this thermal energy resource that they know is valuable, but they haven't figured out really how to exploit it yet. And so Jim is part of this expedition to sort of build a colony and study this energy source and see if they can use it to help Earth. And he begins kind of very innocuously, just taking different contracts and sort of, you know, just he doesn't want to get too deep into all the intrigue. But of course, this being a video game, he gets pulled in and he gets kind of sandwiched between opposing factions. And Jim will play a very important role in the future of the planet. And then, of course, that ties into Lost Planet 1 and 2.
So how different is this game to the previous two games?
Lost Planet 3 is quite different from the previous installments of the franchise. We like to think of it as taking a lot of the elements that are really unique to Lost Planet. The multiple human factions, you have the Nevik versus the Snow Pirates, as well as the Acrid creatures and the robots, which we have returning. And so we've sort of put those in a unique way and in a different way than we have in the previous games. It's still third-person shooting when you're outside of the robot, but when you're inside the vehicle that we call the utility rig, that's this big thing right here, it now goes into first person, and that's done really to accentuate the scale of the utility rig because it's about 10 meters tall. It's the largest vehicle we've ever had in the series, and so you can really sort of look down on the environment. So that's a big change. And then of course one of the things that we've done to sort of get back to basics, if you will, is we're back into the snow planet and the extreme conditions that people saw from the first game, and we've also gotten back to a very strong narrative and character-driven experience for the campaign, and that's complemented by a separate multiplayer mode.
Before we jump into the single-player and multiplayer, you've also introduced something called platform mode.
Yes.
So would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, you have the utility rig, which is initially designed as sort of this civilian construction vehicle that Jim uses in all of his contracts. And it has various attachments, a claw arm, a drill arm, and you can upgrade it over the course of the game. And one of the upgrades that you get is a platform mode that literally allows it to transform into this stationary drilling rig. And that's going to be used in the game to drill into deep thermal energy pockets to get a lot of that resource, which the player can use to purchase upgrades and weapons and things like that. And it's a great way to create sort of this defensive-based gameplay where most of the time Jim is constantly exploring and pushing into new areas. In the platform mode, he actually has to defend the rig as it's drilling while all of the Acrid creatures attack it, and that's a nice change of pace.
So let's talk a little bit more about single player. What is really the core of the story for this single player?
Well, the core of the story is really it's Jim and his story. It literally begins the moment that Jim arrives on the planet. The player is experiencing everything as Jim does, so as everything is new to Jim, so is it to the player. And we've tried to make Jim as believable and relatable of a character as possible. Try to make him very sympathetic. He's not just your generic sort of space marine tough guy. He does have a family that he's constantly sending messages back and forth to his wife. You'll be walking around in the rig and you'll see a message from his wife pop up. How are you doing over there? And so we try to retain that human element as much as possible in the story. So it's really about Jim, and it's about the characters around him at the base, and about how all of those things sort of evolve and change over the course of the story as we discover that Nevik is initially started out with sort of a innocuous scientific exploratory mission, and eventually their motives become much more sinister. And Jim also discovers that there are other human beings on the planet that aren't supposed to be there, and they've been there for many years, and he has to find out why and how this happened, and try to find some way to bridge these kind of two extremes before chaos erupts.
First, we survive, then we keep score.
Well, in Lost Planet 3 we have a separate multiplayer suite of modes. There's a total of 4 game modes in 6 maps. And we're showing a couple of those modes here today. One of them is called the scenario mode. And the thought behind scenario mode was to give people objective-based gameplay types like Capture the Flag or King of the Hill, but to do it with a Lost Planet twist. Instead of just being told, go get the flag because it's the flag. You want the flag, right? We try to set it up so that it has some sort of narrative background, and then it has a grounding in the Lost Planet universe. An example of this is there's one map in the scenario mode where both teams start at opposite ends of the map, and in the middle of the map there's a giant acrid creature. And they have to kill that acrid creature. It drops a thermal energy sample. They then try to grab that and take it back to their base to score a point. So it's a variant of Capture the Flag, but it retains a lot of the Lost Planet elements. So every map in the scenario mode will have a different rule set that's tailored specifically to that map. And then the other mode that we're showing today is called Acrid Survival, which is much more of a cooperative-based mode. And it's you and your teammates against a wave of acrid that are constantly attacking you. And basically, the more you kill, the more points you get, and that's how you win.
It's got some very atmospheric music. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, the music is one of the things we're very proud of in Lost Planet 3, and we were fortunate enough to get Jack Wall, who is the composer who did the first 2 Mass Effect games, as well as Call of Duty Black Ops 2. And so it's great to have a good talent like that. He's done a lot of great themes for the game, including sort of this haunting main title theme that people will see as soon as they load the game.
This one's developed by Spark Unlimited, so what have they actually brought to the table?
Well, I think that Spark has brought a lot of expertise in areas that maybe weren't as strong on the Japanese team that made the first 2 games, namely, the ability to write compelling dialogue and create very good characterization in all of the people that are in the game, as well as the cinematic experiences, the performances. We've done a technique this time around called performance capture. It's similar to what they did in the movie Avatar and the game L.A. Noire, where all of the characters in the game are actually based off of real actors whose faces are scanned, and then they perform the roles. And when they do that, we get both the facial capture information, the body capture, and the voiceover all in one session. So when you see that actor's face and lips move, it's the actual expressions he made when he said those lines in the studio. And that's a great way to really get the true performances. And we have all the actors interacting as a part of an ensemble. And usually in video games, it's just a guy in a booth reading lines, and he has no idea who he's talking to or what the interaction is. But here we actually, if it was a 3-person scene, all 3 people were there in the motion capture studio to talk to each other. So we feel that that's really given us a natural progression with the cinematics.
So is there anyone in this game doing voices we might have actually heard of?
It's mostly people that have either are well known for voice acting or sort of up and comers, so to speak. But Bill Watterson, who's the actor that plays Jim, the main character, is a really great guy. He's actually been pretty active in interfacing with the community of people who are going to play the game. And so we're really thankful to have a lot of involvement. They didn't just come and do it and then walk away. They really like their roles, and Bill's always talking about, hey, I'm Jim. He's got the beard and everything, so it's a really nice touch.
So what was your reasoning behind setting Lost Planet 3 before the previous Lost Planet games? Why not somewhere else?
Well, there's a couple of things that came up when we first started talking about doing a third Lost Planet game. The first one was an internal concept that we said, return to extreme conditions. The first game was Lost Planet Extreme Condition, and it was all about this, snow and ice on the planet and how, sort of intense that was. And everybody we talked to really associates that with the franchise. And in the second game, we try to include some jungles and deserts and more variety, quote unquote variety. But the interesting thing is sometimes by adding more variety, you actually sort of you thin out the overall experience, and so we wanted to go back to our core strength of that ice planet. Another thing that really intrigued us is we have a lot of elements that are discussed or hinted at in the other games. How did the rivalry or the conflict between the Nevik and the Snow Pirates begin, right? Who are the Snow Pirates, and how did they get there? These are the kind of things that these were already established at the beginning of the first game. So we saw an interesting opportunity to go back and tell those stories and explain to people, how those things came about. So it was really kind of a confluence of events that came together that said we can show the planet in its most, pristine, natural state before the humans really had any influence whatsoever. We can show the colonists and their struggle to survive, and we can, discuss a lot of the history of the planet and how things became the way they were. And then by the end of LP3, we've established a lot of these things, and we've made hints and connected to particularly LP1, so that franchise fans will have a lot of fun with that.
And what's the reaction been from the fans who've seen the game so far?
So far, it's been good. I mean, I think people are somewhat cautiously optimistic because it has been taken out of house and we're working with a Western developer and et cetera, et cetera. But my belief and my hope is that when they actually are able to sit down and play the game and they see that yes, it is different, but it's still unmistakably a Lost Planet game, I'm hoping that that will really excite people even further to want to jump into this world.
So what's been the biggest single challenge on developing Lost Planet 3?
Well, I think the biggest challenge, and this is sort of a larger topic, but it's really been the collaboration between Capcom as a publisher and the teams in Osaka who worked on the first two games, and their collaboration and their sort of cooperation with Spark. Because one of the things that we really set out to do at the beginning was we didn't want to just hand the franchise over and say, run with it. We wanted to have the opportunity for it to be a two-way street so that we could collaborate, and the guys who made the first two games in Japan could say, here's what we think is important, here's the things you can't change, this is what makes Lost Planet, but here's all the stuff that we're not married to. Go ahead and have fun with that. And it was that collaboration and that sort of back and forth that created the shared vision that has resulted in the game as it is today.
And so when's the game out then?
Game comes out August 30th in Europe. It's for PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and PC.
And any thoughts of a downloadable playable demo?
We're still evaluating that right now, and we'll look and see what we can do. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Corona's Actual, this is Peyton. I found your Frenchman. He's at a fueling depot near Watkins Pass.
That's a relief. Sending out a rescue team now. Good work, Peyton. You should find your account credited with a search and rescue bonus. Hold on. Peyton, you say you're near Watkins Pass? Your predecessor, Diaz, set up a thermal post nearby. It's been sitting full, wasting T energy since she disappeared. Locate the post and tap it before you return. Just be careful. Acrid like to nest around untended thermal posts. Good luck.